Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez crouched behind a shattered concrete wall, her rifle steady as she watched the enemy patrol move through the abandoned village below. The morning sun cast long shadows between the bombed-out buildings, and she could hear the distant rumble of artillery fire from the main front lines 20 kilometers away. What should have been a routine reconnaissance mission was about to become something much more dangerous. Rodriguez had been in the Army for 8 years, starting as an 18-year-old private from East Los Angeles who wanted to see the world and pay for college. She never expected to find herself leading a 5-person squad through hostile territory in Eastern Europe, gathering intelligence on enemy troop movements. Her dark hair was pulled back under her helmet, and her brown eyes constantly scanned the terrain with the practiced gaze of someone who had learned to spot danger before it found her. "Actual, this is Bravo 7, she whispered into her radio headset, using the call sign for her squad. "We have visual on approximately 30 enemy soldiers setting up a checkpoint at grid reference 7742. They appear to be establishing a permanent position with sandbags and vehicle barriers." The voice that crackled back through her earpiece belonged to Captain Morrison, their company commander operating from a forward base 15 kilometers behind friendly lines. "Copy, Bravo 7. Continue observation and report any heavy weapons or vehicle movements. Extraction is scheduled for 1800 hours at Landing Zone Charlie." Rodriguez glanced at her watch. It was only 10 in the morning, which meant 8 more hours of watching and waiting. Her squad was positioned in what had once been someone's home, probably a family with children based on the toys scattered in the rubble. Now it served as their observation post, giving them a clear view of the main road through the village. Private First Class Tommy Chen lay next to her with a pair of high-powered binoculars, methodically scanning the enemy positions. At 19, he was the youngest member of the squad, but Rodriguez had seen him stay calm under fire during their deployment. "Sergeant, I count 3 heavy machine gun positions and what looks like a mortar crew setting up behind that blue building." "Good eyes, Chen. Mark those positions on your map." Rodriguez appreciated soldiers who paid attention to details. In her experience, the difference between coming home and ending up in a body bag often came down to noticing things others missed. Specialist James Wright monitored their long-range communications equipment from a corner of the ruined house. The tall African-American soldier from Detroit had been Rodriguez's radio operator for 2 years, and she trusted him to keep them connected to headquarters no matter what happened. "Communications are solid, Sergeant. Clear channels to base and artillery support if we need it." Corporal Sarah Mitchell and Private Danny Santos provided security, watching their flanks and rear approaches. Mitchell was a tough farm girl from Iowa who could shoot better than most men in the battalion, while Santos was a former gang member from Phoenix who had turned his life around after joining the Army. Together, they formed a tight unit that Rodriguez had molded into an effective fighting team. The morning passed slowly as they documented enemy movements and reported their findings back to headquarters. Rodriguez noted that the enemy soldiers appeared well-equipped and disciplined, not the poorly trained militia forces they had encountered in previous missions. These were professional troops who knew what they were doing, which made her job more dangerous and more important. Around noon, the situation began to change. Rodriguez watched through her binoculars as several military trucks arrived in the village, carrying what appeared to be senior officers and additional equipment. The enemy was clearly preparing something significant, and her mission had just become more critical. "Right, get me Captain Morrison on the radio," she ordered quietly. "Actual, this is Bravo 7. Enemy activity has increased significantly. I count 4 additional vehicles with what appears to be command staff. Request permission to move closer for better intelligence gathering." Captain Morrison's response came after a brief delay. "Negative, Bravo 7. Maintain current position and continue observation. Intelligence indicates possible enemy counteroffensive in your sector. Do not compromise your position." Rodriguez understood the order, but her instincts told her they were missing something important. The enemy wasn't just setting up a checkpoint. They were establishing a forward command post. This could be the key to predicting where the next major attack would come from. As the afternoon wore on, more vehicles arrived. Rodriguez counted at least 12 trucks, 3 armored personnel carriers, and what looked like a mobile communications unit. The enemy was clearly preparing for a major operation, and her small squad was sitting on intelligence that could save hundreds of American lives. At 4 o'clock, Wright received an urgent radio message that made Rodriguez's blood run cold. Sergeant, headquarters reports heavy enemy attack on our main positions. All units are ordered to fall back to secondary defensive lines immediately. Rodriguez felt her stomach sink. If their main forces were retreating, it meant the enemy breakthrough was larger than anyone had expected. More importantly, it meant their planned extraction at Landing Zone Charlie might not be possible. Right. Contact Captain Morrison and confirm our extraction status. The radio crackled with static before Wright shook his head grimly. No response from actual, Sergeant. I'm getting automated emergency broadcasts. Ordering all forward units to evacuate immediately. Rodriguez realized they were in serious trouble. Their extraction zone was behind what had been friendly lines. But if those lines had collapsed, they could be walking into an enemy trap. On the other hand, staying in their current position meant being surrounded as enemy forces moved forward. Chen, what do you see down there? The young soldier adjusted his binoculars and studied the village. Enemy soldiers are packing up equipment and moving out. But they're leaving about 15 men to hold the checkpoint. Looks like they're preparing to advance. Rodriguez made a command decision that would change everything. All right, people, listen up. Our main forces are falling back, which means we're about to be cut off. We have two choices. Try to reach our extraction point, which might be compromised, or stay here and risk being surrounded. She looked at each member of her squad, seeing determination mixed with concern in their faces. These were good soldiers who trusted her judgment, and she felt the weight of responsibility for their lives. We're going to attempt to reach Landing Zone Charlie, but we'll move carefully and be ready to change plans if necessary. Right. Keep trying to raise Captain Morrison or any friendly unit that can give us an update on the tactical situation. As they prepared to leave their observation post, Rodriguez took one last look at the enemy positions through her binoculars. The intelligence they had gathered could be crucial for planning future operations, assuming they survived to deliver it. She made mental notes of everything they had observed, knowing that every detail might be important. The squad moved out just as the sun began to set, traveling in single file through the rubble-strewn streets. Rodriguez led the way, using hand signals to communicate with her team as they navigated around enemy patrols and moved toward their planned extraction point. After 2 hours of careful movement, they reached a hillside overlooking Landing Zone Charlie. What Rodriguez saw through her night vision scope made her heart sink. The landing zone was occupied by enemy soldiers who had clearly been waiting for any American forces attempting to reach the extraction point. It's a trap, she whispered to Chen, who was lying next to her. They knew about our extraction plan. The implications were terrifying. Either their communications had been intercepted, or someone had given the enemy information about their mission. Either way, they were now completely cut off from friendly forces with no way to call for help. Wright crawled up beside them with devastating news. Sergeant, I finally made contact with another unit. The entire sector has fallen back, 15 kilometers. Our forces are regrouping, but it will be at least 24 hours before they can mount any kind of rescue operation. Rodriguez felt the full weight of their situation settle on her shoulders. They were 5 American soldiers stranded behind rapidly advancing enemy lines, with no support and no way out. The enemy knew about their mission and was actively hunting for them. Their only advantages were their training, their weapons, and their determination to survive. All right, here's what we're going to do, she told her squad, keeping her voice calm and confident even though she felt anything but confident inside. We're going to find a place to hide and wait for our people to come get us. We have enough food and ammunition for several days if we're careful, and our training has prepared us for this kind of situation. Santos raised his hand slightly. Sergeant, what if they don't come for us? Rodriguez looked at the young soldier, remembering that he had a pregnant wife back home in Phoenix. They will come for us, Santos. The army doesn't leave people behind. Our job is to stay alive and stay hidden until they do. She hoped she sounded more confident than she felt. The truth was that rescue operations behind enemy lines were extremely dangerous and often impossible. Military commanders had to balance the risk of losing more soldiers against the chance of saving those already trapped. Sometimes, Hard decisions had to be made. Over the next hour, they moved carefully through the darkness, looking for a place to establish a temporary base. Rodriguez needed somewhere defensible but hidden, with multiple escape routes and access to water if possible. Finally, they found what appeared to be an old mine shaft cut into a hillside, partially hidden by overgrown vegetation. Chen used his flashlight to explore the entrance, while the others provided security. It goes back about 50 meters and opens up into a larger chamber. There's no other way in or out, but we could defend this easily if we had to. Rodriguez made the decision to use the mine as their temporary sanctuary. It wasn't perfect, but it would keep them hidden while they figured out their next move. As her squad settled in for what might be a long wait, she tried to maintain radio contact with any friendly forces that might be listening. The reality of their situation was becoming clear. Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez and her 4 soldiers were now completely on their own, abandoned behind enemy lines with no reinforcements and no immediate hope of rescue. Their survival would depend entirely on their training, their courage, and their ability to work together as a team. As Rodriguez took the first watch while her soldiers tried to rest, she stared out at the enemy-occupied territory surrounding them and wondered if anyone even knew they were still alive. The mission that had started as routine reconnaissance had become a fight for survival, and she was responsible for bringing her people home safely. She checked her rifle one more time and settled in to wait, knowing that morning would bring new challenges and new dangers. Whatever happened next, she was determined that her squad would not be forgotten and would not be abandoned. They were American soldiers, and they would find a way to survive until help arrived, no matter how long it took or how dangerous the journey became. Rodriguez woke to the sound of Chen's urgent whisper. "Sergeant, we've got movement outside. Looks like a patrol about 200 meters down the hill." She checked her watch. It was just after dawn, and she had managed only 3 hours of sleep. Her body ached from lying on the rocky floor of the mine shaft, but adrenaline quickly pushed away the fatigue. Through the concealed entrance, she could see enemy soldiers moving through the valley below, systematically searching abandoned buildings and checking potential hiding spots. "How many?" she whispered back. 8 soldiers with a tracking dog," Chen reported, his eye pressed to a small gap between the rocks they had used to camouflage their position. "They're moving in our direction, but slowly. Looks like they're checking every possible hiding place." Rodriguez felt her heart rate increase. A tracking dog changed everything. Human searchers might miss their carefully concealed entrance, but a dog would smell them immediately if it got close enough. She had to assume the enemy was specifically looking for American survivors from yesterday's fighting. "Right. Any luck with communications?" The radio operator shook his head grimly. "Still getting automated emergency broadcasts, but no direct contact with friendly forces. The enemy appears to be jamming most military frequencies in this area." Rodriguez gathered her squad in the deepest part of the mine shaft and spoke in a barely audible whisper. "We have a patrol with a dog searching this area. If they find us, we fight our way out and scatter. Everyone knows the emergency rally point we discussed last night. If we get separated, make your way there and wait 24 hours for the others before moving on alone." Mitchell checked her rifle and nodded. "What's the plan if the dog picks up our scent?" "We let them get as close as possible before opening fire. Take out the dog first, then the patrol leader. Create maximum confusion, and use the mine entrance as a choke point." Rodriguez had learned long ago that successful small unit tactics relied on turning disadvantages into advantages. The mine shaft that could trap them could also funnel attacking enemies into a kill zone. Santos positioned himself near the entrance with his automatic weapon, while Chen and Mitchell covered the flanks. Wright maintained his position with the radio equipment, ready to destroy sensitive communications gear if capture seemed inevitable. Rodriguez took position where she could observe the approaching patrol and coordinate their defense. The next 30 minutes passed with agonizing slowness. The enemy soldiers moved methodically through the area, checking caves, abandoned vehicles, and thick vegetation. Rodriguez could hear their voices getting closer, along with the occasional bark from their search dog. She estimated they would reach the vicinity of the mine entrance within 10 minutes. Then something unexpected happened. Wright suddenly grabbed her arm and pointed to his radio headset. "Sergeant, I'm getting something. Weak signal, but it sounds like American voices." Rodriguez crawled over to listen. Through heavy static, she could barely make out what sounded like military radio traffic. The signal was too weak and broken to understand clearly, but the communication procedures sounded familiar. "Can you boost the signal?" "Not without using more power, which would risk the enemy detecting our transmission," Wright explained. "But if I can get a clearer signal, we might be able to call for help." Rodriguez faced an impossible decision. Using their radio to call for help might attract the attention of the patrol currently searching for them, but if American forces were operating in the area, this might be their only chance to establish contact before being captured or killed. The sound of the enemy dog barking suddenly got much closer. Through the concealed entrance, Rodriguez could see the patrol had reached the base of their hill and was beginning to climb toward their position. In less than 5 minutes, the dog would be close enough to detect their scent. "Right, try to make contact, but keep it brief. Everyone else, prepare for contact. If they find us, we take them down fast and move to our backup position immediately." Wright began working with his radio, trying to clean up the signal while keeping the transmission power as low as possible. The static cleared slightly, and they could hear what was definitely American military radio traffic, but the voices were too distant to make out individual words. Rodriguez watched the approaching patrol through a small gap in the rocks. 8 soldiers moving in a standard search formation, with the dog handler slightly ahead of the main group. They wore the uniforms of regular army troops, not special forces, which meant they were probably good soldiers, but not elite units. That could work to her advantage if fighting became necessary. The dog suddenly stopped and raised its head, sniffing the air. Rodriguez felt her stomach clench as the animal turned toward their position and began pulling its handler up the hill. They had been detected. "Contact in 60 seconds, she whispered to her squad. "Remember, take out the dog first, then concentrate fire on the group leader. Use the terrain to our advantage." But before the enemy patrol could reach their position, the radio in Wright's hands suddenly crackled to life with a clear American voice. "Any friendly forces in Sector 7-7, this is Guardian 6. We are conducting search and rescue operations for missing personnel. Respond on this frequency if you can hear this transmission." Rodriguez grabbed the handset from Wright. This was their chance, but responding would definitely reveal their position to the enemy patrol. She had seconds to make a decision that could save their lives or get them all killed. "Guardian 6, this is Bravo 7. We are 5 personnel trapped behind enemy lines at grid reference 7739. Immediate enemy contact, imminent. Request immediate assistance. Over." The response came back immediately. "Bravo 7, Guardian 6. We have been searching for you. Maintain your position if possible. We are inbound to your location with fast movers and ground support. Estimate 15 minutes to your position." 15 minutes. Rodriguez looked at the enemy patrol, now less than 50 meters away with their dog pulling them directly toward the mine entrance. She had to keep her squad alive for 15 minutes, against 8 enemy soldiers, who were about to discover their exact location. "Right, acknowledge the transmission and then destroy the radio. Everyone else, weapons free. Take them down." Rodriguez aimed her rifle at the search dog and squeezed the trigger. The animal dropped immediately, causing confusion among the enemy soldiers who suddenly found themselves under accurate fire from an unknown position. Santos opened up with his automatic weapon, forcing the patrol to take cover behind rocks and small trees on the hillside. "Chen, Mitchell, move to the secondary positions we talked about." Santos. Controlled bursts. Don't waste ammunition. The firefight that followed lasted only 5 minutes, but it felt like hours. The enemy soldiers were well trained and quickly organized a coordinated assault on their position, but Rodriguez had chosen their defensive positions carefully. The mine entrance created a natural bottleneck that prevented the enemy from using their numerical advantage effectively. Mitchell proved her reputation as an excellent marksman by picking off 2 enemy soldiers who tried to flank their position from the left. Chen used his knowledge of the local terrain to move between covered positions, making the enemy think they were facing a larger force. Santos kept up steady suppressive fire that prevented the remaining enemy soldiers from mounting an effective assault. Rodriguez coordinated their defense while engaging targets of opportunity with her rifle. Her years of training and combat experience showed as she maintained situational awareness of the entire battle while making split-second tactical decisions. She could see that they were winning the engagement, but more enemy forces were probably responding to the sound of gunfire. After 5 minutes of intense combat, the surviving enemy soldiers began to withdraw down the hill. Rodriguez counted 4 bodies and suspected at least 2 more casualties among the retreating troops. Her squad had eliminated an entire enemy patrol without losing anyone. But their position was now compromised. "Sergeant, I can hear vehicles approaching from the north," Chen reported. "Sounds like reinforcements." Rodriguez knew they had to move immediately. The mine shaft that had protected them was now a trap that would get them killed if enemy reinforcements surrounded the hill, but they also had to stay close enough for the American rescue force to find them. Pack everything essential and prepare to move. We're going to relocate to the backup position and wait for our people to arrive. The backup position was a cluster of large boulders about 500 meters away that provided good cover and multiple escape routes. Rodriguez led her squad in a fighting withdrawal from the mine, using smoke grenades to conceal their movement while maintaining overwatch positions to prevent enemy pursuit. As they reached the boulder field, they could hear the sound of approaching helicopters in the distance. Rodriguez felt a surge of hope. American forces were definitely in the area and looking for them. But the sound of enemy vehicles was also getting closer, which meant they were about to be caught between 2 forces. "Right. Do you still have the emergency radio beacon?" "Yes, Sergeant. It's been broadcasting our position automatically since yesterday." "Good. Chen, Mitchell, establish a perimeter. Santos, watch our back trail. If American forces are coming, we need to make sure they can find us before the enemy surrounds us." The next few minutes were critical. Rodriguez could hear the helicopters getting closer, but she could also see enemy vehicles moving up the road toward their position. It was going to be a race between rescue and capture. With her squad caught in the middle, through her binoculars, she spotted 3 enemy trucks, carrying what looked like at least 30 soldiers. They were establishing a perimeter around the base of the hill, clearly intending to trap any Americans in the area until they could be captured or eliminated. At the same time, the sound of helicopter rotors was getting much louder, suggesting that American aircraft were approaching fast. "Contact front," Mitchell suddenly called out. Enemy infantry moving up the slope in extended line formation. Rodriguez could see enemy soldiers advancing toward their position from multiple directions. The backup position was good, but not good enough to hold off 30 enemies for very long. They needed their rescue to arrive immediately, or they would be overwhelmed. Then she heard the most beautiful sound in the world. The distinctive roar of American attack helicopters, followed by the rapid fire of their weapons systems. Guardian 6 had arrived, and they were engaging the enemy forces surrounding Rodriguez's position. "Bravo 7. This is Guardian 6. We have visual on your position, and are engaging enemy forces in your vicinity. Pop smoke to mark your exact location for extraction." Over. Rodriguez threw a colored smoke grenade into the open area near their position, while her squad maintained defensive positions. The smoke billowed up into the morning air, creating a clear signal for the rescue helicopters while hopefully avoiding detection by enemy forces who were now under attack from above. 2 attack helicopters swept over their position, engaging enemy vehicles and infantry with rockets and machine gun fire. Behind them, Rodriguez could see a transport helicopter approaching at low level, clearly intending to extract her squad from their precarious position. "Everyone ready for immediate extraction," she called to her squad. "When that helicopter lands, we move fast, and we move together. Nobody gets left behind." The sound of rotors grew deafening as the transport helicopter flared for landing in the small clearing near their position. Rodriguez could see door gunners providing covering fire while the crew chief gestured for them to approach the aircraft quickly. "Go, go, go." Rodriguez's squad sprinted toward the waiting helicopter under covering fire from American attack aircraft. After nearly 24 hours of being trapped behind enemy lines, salvation was finally within reach. But even as they ran toward safety, Rodriguez knew their ordeal was far from over. The intelligence they had gathered and the experience they had gained would be crucial for future operations in this dangerous region. Rodriguez dove into the helicopter as enemy bullets sparked off the aircraft's armored hull. The crew chief, a burly sergeant with Gordian patches on his uniform, grabbed her arm and pulled her toward a seat while shouting over the roar of the engines. "Welcome aboard, Sergeant. We're getting you out of here." As the helicopter lifted off, Rodriguez looked back to see Santos and Chen climbing aboard, followed by Mitchell and Wright. All 5 members of her squad had made it to the aircraft safely, but the extraction was far from over. Enemy forces on the ground were concentrating their fire on the departing helicopter, and she could see muzzle flashes from multiple positions. The pilot, a calm voice over the intercom system, announced their situation. "Guardian. 6 to all passengers. We're taking effective fire from the ground. Hang on while we get some separation from the landing zone." Rodriguez felt the helicopter bank sharply to the left as the pilot maneuvered to avoid enemy fire. Through the small window, she could see one of the escort attack helicopters engaging targets on the ground with rockets and chain gun fire, providing covering fire for their escape. The crew chief handed her a headset so she could communicate with the aircraft crew. "Sergeant Rodriguez. I'm Master Sergeant Taylor, Guardian 6 crew chief. Colonel Barnes wants to debrief you as soon as we reach the forward operating base. Your intelligence report could be critical for ongoing operations in this sector." Rodriguez nodded, still processing the fact that they had actually been rescued. 24 hours ago, she had been conducting routine reconnaissance. Now her squad had survived combat behind enemy lines and extraction under fire. Her people were safe, but she knew their real work was just beginning. "What's the status of the friendly forces that were supposed to extract us yesterday?" she asked Taylor. "Heavy casualties during the enemy offensive," Taylor replied grimly. "Your original extraction team was overrun before they could reach the landing zone. Captain Morrison is alive but wounded. The entire sector fell back 15 kilometers before we could establish new defensive positions." Rodriguez felt a chill as she realized how close her squad had come to walking into a death trap. If they had attempted to reach their original extraction point, they would have been captured or killed. Sometimes, survival came down to making the right decision with incomplete information. As the helicopter flew toward friendly territory, Rodriguez looked at her squad members. Chen was cleaning his rifle with practiced efficiency. Santos was checking his ammunition, and Mitchell was already taking notes about their combat engagement. Wright was monitoring the radio traffic to understand the larger tactical situation. These were good soldiers who had performed exceptionally under impossible circumstances. "Sergeant," Taylor called over the intercom, "Colonel Barnes wants to speak with you." The voice that came through her headset was crisp and professional. "Sergeant Rodriguez, this is Colonel Barnes, Commander of Special Operations Task Force Guardian. Your squad's survival behind enemy lines and the intelligence you gathered may have prevented a major enemy breakthrough. We need a full debrief as soon as you reach our base. 8. You are under. Copy, Colonel. My squad is ready to provide whatever information you need." "Outstanding, Sergeant. I want you to know that your leadership over the past 24 hours has been exemplary. Your people are alive because of the decisions you made under extreme pressure." Rodriguez appreciated the recognition, but she knew the real test would be whether the intelligence they had gathered could help save other American lives. The enemy positions and troop movements they had observed could be crucial for planning future operations. 30 minutes later, the helicopter landed at Forward Operating Base Sentinel, a heavily fortified position that served as headquarters for American special operations in the region. Rodriguez could see that the base was a hub of intense activity, with helicopters, armored vehicles, and communications equipment positioned throughout the compound. As her squad disembarked from the helicopter, Rodriguez was met by Colonel Barnes himself. The colonel was a tall, lean officer with the quiet confidence that marked experienced special operations commanders. His uniform bore the patches of multiple elite units, and his handshake conveyed both strength and respect. "Sergeant Rodriguez, welcome back. Your squad's survival is remarkable. But more importantly, the intelligence you gathered has already proven valuable. We detected the enemy command post you reported, and it matches our assessment of their offensive capabilities. Rodriguez felt proud that her tactical observations had been accurate, but she was more concerned about the immediate threat. Colonel, the enemy forces we observed were well-equipped and disciplined. They're planning something significant, and they had detailed knowledge of our original extraction plan. That's what concerns us most, Colonel Barnes replied. Come with me. I want you to see what our intelligence analysts have discovered using your reports. Colonel Barnes led Rodriguez and her squad into a secure briefing room, where several officers were studying maps, photographs, and computer displays. The walls were covered with detailed tactical maps, showing enemy and friendly positions throughout the region. Captain Walsh, show Sergeant Rodriguez what we've learned. Captain Walsh, a young intelligence officer, turned to address Rodriguez directly. Sergeant, your observation about enemy command staff arriving in the village was critical. We've since confirmed that the enemy is planning a major offensive operation designed to break through our defensive lines and capture the regional capital. Rodriguez studied the map displays, recognizing the terrain where her squad had been operating. Sir, the enemy positions we observed were perfectly positioned to support an attack on our main defensive positions. They had clear fields of fire and excellent communication capabilities. Exactly, Colonel Barnes confirmed. Your intelligence allowed us to identify the enemy's main effort before they could launch their attack. We've already repositioned our forces and called in additional air support to counter their offensive. Rodriguez felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that her squad's difficult mission had contributed to saving American lives. But she also realized that her role in this operation was not yet finished. Colonel, my squad observed detailed enemy patrol patterns and reaction times. We also identified their weaknesses and blind spots that could be exploited by Special Operations Forces. Weak, Colonel Barnes smiled grimly. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear, Sergeant. We're planning a preemptive strike on the enemy command post you identified. Your tactical knowledge could be the difference between success and failure. Over the next 2 hours, Rodriguez provided detailed information about enemy positions, patrol schedules, defensive preparations, and command structure. Her squad members contributed additional observations about terrain, enemy equipment, and tactical procedures. The intelligence they provided painted a complete picture of enemy capabilities and vulnerabilities. Captain Walsh used their information to update tactical maps and refine targeting priorities for the upcoming operation. Sergeant, your observation about the mobile communications unit was particularly valuable. Destroying that equipment could cripple enemy coordination for their entire offensive. Rodriguez found herself working directly with the Special Operations Planning Team, providing input on approach routes, target priorities, and escape plans. Her experience surviving behind enemy lines gave her unique insights into how enemy forces operated and how they could be defeated. Colonel, I request permission for my squad to participate in the strike operation, Rodriguez said during a brief break in the planning session. Colonel Barnes studied her carefully. Sergeant, your squad has been through enough. You've earned some rest and recovery time. Sir, respectfully, my people know that terrain better than anyone else available. We've seen the enemy positions firsthand, and we know their patterns and procedures. We can contribute to the mission's success. After a moment of consideration, Colonel Barnes nodded. Very well, Sergeant. Your squad will accompany our strike team as tactical advisors and guides. But I want you to understand that this will be a dangerous mission conducted entirely behind enemy lines. Rodriguez looked at her squad members, seeing determination and readiness in their faces. Chen, Mitchell, Santos, and Wright had all proven themselves during their survival ordeal, and she knew they could handle whatever challenges lay ahead. 6 hours later, Rodriguez found herself back in a helicopter, this time leading a joint force of her own squad and a special operations team toward the enemy command post they had identified. The mission plan called for a precision strike that would eliminate enemy leadership and destroy critical communications equipment while gathering additional intelligence. As the helicopters approached the target area under cover of darkness, Rodriguez felt the familiar mix of fear and excitement that preceded combat operations. But this time was different. Instead of being abandoned behind enemy lines, She was part of a carefully planned operation supported by the best soldiers and equipment the American military could provide. The helicopters landed 2 kilometers from the target, and the combined force moved through the darkness toward the enemy position. Rodriguez took point, using her knowledge of the terrain to guide the special operations team along the safest route. Her squad provided security and tactical advice based on their previous observations of enemy patrol patterns. Guardian Actual, this is Ground Team Leader. The Special Operations Commander whispered into his radio. We are in position for final approach. Sergeant Rodriguez confirms enemy positions match her previous intelligence. Rodriguez felt proud to be trusted by elite Special Operations forces who relied on her tactical knowledge for mission success. The enemy command post was exactly where she had reported it, with the same defensive positions and guard rotations she had observed during her reconnaissance. The strike itself was swift and devastating. Special Operations forces used precision weapons to eliminate enemy leadership and destroy communications equipment, while Rodriguez's squad provided overwatch and route security. Within 30 minutes, the entire enemy command structure had been dismantled, and critical intelligence had been captured for analysis. As the combined force prepared to return to base, Rodriguez realized that her squad's ordeal behind enemy lines had become something much more significant. They had not only survived abandonment and capture, but their intelligence had enabled a successful strike that would save countless American lives. During the helicopter flight back to base, the Special Operations Commander spoke to Rodriguez over the intercom. Sergeant, your leadership and tactical knowledge were crucial to tonight's success. You and your squad have made a real difference in this conflict. Rodriguez looked at her soldiers, seeing the pride and satisfaction in their faces. Chen, Mitchell, Santos, and Wright had proven that regular Army soldiers could perform at the highest levels when properly led and motivated. They had survived abandonment, conducted successful defensive operations, and contributed to a major tactical victory. As the helicopter touched down at the forward operating base, Rodriguez knew that her squad's experience would become part of military training and doctrine for years to come. They had demonstrated that survival behind enemy lines was possible with proper training, effective leadership, and the determination to never give up. Colonel Barnes was waiting for them as they disembarked from the helicopter. Sergeant Rodriguez, I've just received word that the enemy offensive has been canceled due to the loss of their command structure. Your squad's actions over the past 3 days have directly contributed to saving hundreds of American lives. Rodriguez saluted the colonel, but her real satisfaction came from seeing her squad members safely back at base. They had started as 5 soldiers on a routine reconnaissance mission, but they had proven themselves as elite warriors capable of surviving and succeeding under the most difficult circumstances imaginable. The intelligence they had gathered, the combat skills they had demonstrated, and the leadership they had shown would serve as an example for future soldiers facing similar challenges. Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez and her squad had proven that American soldiers never quit, never surrender, and never leave their people behind.